been involved with the group for over a year now on various different levels. And I have to say that it is so exciting to be able to be invited to speak to you today. I'm going to be sharing some ideas, and I'm also going to be talking a little bit later on how the opportunity at hand is rolled out so that you can have some more details. So I'm just going to start off talking about the why, because often we always want to know how. Now, tell me how. But it's actually the why that you've got to focus on. I mean, in South Africa right now, when you invest or you put money in any particular business idea or a investment portfolio, you've got to be asking what's the motivation? Why are you doing it? Is it because you want to have a long or a widespread portfolio? Is it because you want to have a monthly income stream? Is it because you want to give it to your kids and give them a nice portfolio? What is it? What's the motivation behind putting your money anywhere? Now, whether it's a business, whether it's a share option, whether it's a license, which you have all purchased, and when I look at the returns, I go, wow, the returns are amazing. I mean, how many of you agree for the amount of money that you paid to purchase a license, the return has been phenomenal? Would you agree with that? Yes? So I'm just going to throw some ideas around, and as Kevin said, yes, I am a business owner. So I look at this from a business point of view, and I look at it from a sustainability point of view, and I look at the bigger picture, and I say, where are we going? And what we're going to talk about today is so exciting because the visionaries behind this brand, the companies, the whole portfolio and suite of companies, when you sit with them one-on-one and you listen to where they're going and the way they think, you've quickly realized that you want to be amongst them. Because when you mix with successful people, you pick up and you get the sniff and the ideas of success. And there's a saying that soort soek soort. You know that, birds of a feather flock together. So if you hang around with broke people, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get broke. If you hang around with sick people, you will get sick. So the same concept is in this environment. If you hang around with people that think differently, that think on a completely different business level, you'll start to pick up ideas, and then it's up to you to implement those ideas. About 2 years ago, I went to this massive seminar in Sandton. There were 4,500 people, and I saw a handful of people taking action. They wanted to buy something and grow and change. And a small percentage, maybe 2% or 3%, actually physically bought an idea or a concept or a training program. And I watched those people, every single one of them that kept on coming back to learn and grow. Every one of them, their businesses changed. They added businesses to their portfolios. They started having much more success. Even their dialogue, their language started to change. Right? When you mix with successful people, they talk a different language. They're up there. Right? 99% of the time, they're positive, self-motivated people. They don't need to be pushed out of bed. They jump out of bed, right? And decision makers are like that. I heard a saying years ago, successful people make decisions quickly and change those decisions slowly. Unsuccessful people take a long time to make their mind up, and then they change it just like that. So they actually live or stay in the decision-making process. So all of you that are in the room, you made a decision to purchase a license, be it from All Quotes or Buy Direct. You've seen a dividend. Every month you get paid. So you already know this is a company of integrity. They do what they say, and now they're taking it to another level. So I'm just going to give you some background information as to almost why you'd want to go to a different level. Because yes, making some money every month is fantastic, but making a lot of money and building an asset is better. Okay, so just quickly, I'm just going to cover this. If only, I'm going to talk about a concept called intentional congruence. It's a big word. I'd never heard it either until I went to America and found out how it works. And then I'm going to talk about 15 different businesses that are all creating almost the pillars of what we're going to talk about today and the offering that we have on for today. So how many of you have ever said this? If only I had done this. If only I had done that. How many of you have ever had a regret in your life? Raise your hands. Okay, some of you, no regrets. That's good. I like that positive attitude, right? If you've ever had a regret, I've got a lot of regrets. I mean, there was a girl on the beach down in Walvis Bay. I'm talking 27 years ago. If I just went up to her and said hello a year before I left, I would have known that she was dying for me to say hello to her. I didn't know. A regret. How many times people have come to me? I mean, I had a friend of mine who came to me about 4.5, 5 years ago, and he said, Andrew, I've got this business idea, and I'm looking for between 200,000 and 300,000 rand. That's all I need. And I looked at it, and I thought, no, you know what? I don't get it. I don't see it. He sold his business for 180 million rand about 4 months ago. He offered me 50%. Now, how many of you would like to make a cool 90 million rand in 4 years? I mean, hello. Yeah. And I turned that down like an idiot, but I didn't see it. So sometimes opportunities, we don't always see them clearly. It's like if I say, right, let's go and build another hotel next to this hotel. Some of you will say, brilliant idea. Some of you will say, nah, there's already a hotel here. We don't need another hotel, because you don't see it in the same way. So what's been fantastic is, just sitting in the conversation with Johan and I want to call them the visionaries of this organization, I get so fired up because I can see there's a pattern and there's a pathway. So what are the patterns and pathways? So John Paul Getty said, I'd rather have 1% effort of 100 people than 100% effort of my own. And this is a fundamental foundation to wealth. Because if you're trying to do everything yourself, in other words, you're going to make all your money on your own, guess what's going to happen? You've got 24 hours in a day, you're limited to the amount of money you can make, which means that you're going to end up okay, if you're lucky. Now in South Africa, the number works like this: 95% of people, and I didn't make this number up, you can go to any consensus insurance company, they all have the same numbers. 95% of people by the age of 65 are either dead or broke. Or both. 95%. That means 5% of people have got their oats together and can show a return, can give money to their kids when they pass on. Only 5%. Now you have to ask yourself the question, why is it only 5%? Why is the number so low? Well, I'll tell you, we are not taught at school to do business on a grandiose scale. We're not taught that. We are taught, go and get an education, good education, so that you can get a good job and you can work until you're 60, 65, hopefully retire with a turkey and a gold watch. Remember in the old days, turkey and a gold watch. That's what you got when you retired. The problem with that is that business has changed so dramatically that if you're not part of a group of people, forward-thinking people that have forward and change, or call it futuristic thinking, you will always be behind because the world has become super fast. I mean, in the old days, you wanted to find something, you'd have to go and find a page through the yellow pages. Nowadays, you're driving in your car. One hand, you have your cigarette. Your other hand, you've got your cell phone. You've got a sandwich between your knees. You're doing 10 things at one time. You just go onto Google on your phone. Within seconds, I mean, to find the venue today, how many of you used your cell phone? Raise your hands. Yeah. You type the address in and the phone tells you where to go. You couldn't do that a few years ago. So things are changing dramatically. It's faster, it's a higher pace, and there's more profit in it if you know what you're doing. So John Paul Getty, he understood one thing. He said you've got to own the entire exchange. In other words, the full process. Now, for those of you who don't know who he was, I mean, he was known as the richest American alive in 1957. His legacy still lives on. I mean, he was the fastest billionaire in his day, the fastest person to become a billionaire in his day. And he said, intentional congruence is the way to billionaire status. Now, often people say, what is intentional congruence? What are you talking about? I don't understand the word. Well, this is the billionaire code. The billionaires have learned how to connect dots. They've learned how to get one business to make money for the next business, to make money for the next business. And when you are involved in a business like that, income is almost automatic. For instance, when you go to the bank nowadays, in the old days, you just went to the bank. What else can you buy through the bank nowadays? You can get a laptop or an iPad through your bank. You can get insurance through the bank. What else can you get? Can you buy airtime at the bank? You're kidding me, really? Wow. Okay, so you can get airtime through the bank. Now, why would the bank do that? Because the bank has thousands of customers coming in every single day. So they sell and they make more money because they're an engine that makes money. And they've only cottoned onto that in the last few years. So this is what he said. When you build wealth, you have to control the entire supply line. In other words, you've got to own the trucks that deliver the oil. You've got to own the garages or the service stations. You've got to own the entire process, and then you can make money on every single level. You don't give your money to your competition. Okay? So in intentional congruence, I'm going to give you a few examples. I actually met this guy. I went to America a year and a bit ago. That's Dr. Nido Cobain, and he's one of the foremost specialists on intentional congruence. And he said to me, Andrew, if you want to be wealthy one day, you cannot only do one thing. You have to spread your portfolio, and you've got to be able to get different entities all feeding into the same business model. Now, believe it or not, it took me a year and a half to figure this out. I mean, I own multiple businesses, but I'd never heard of this concept before, and it didn't make sense to me when he first told me. So I'm going to give you a basic rundown, right, on how it works. So let me give you a few examples. Think of a retailer. In the old days, we used to go into a retailer and buy our food, right? Now you go into a retailer, you can also buy clothing. So Woolies, the hyper stores, you can buy clothing. You can also get medical. You go into Clicks, they've now got a pharmacy in Clicks. Right? And they're highly, highly, highly profitable because they've got you in. They didn't pay money to get you in the door. You went there because you wanted to go there in the first place for something else, incidental purchase, right? They also have, this clicker is not working, so like you said just now, you can buy airtime. Now, what does a retailer get paid on airtime? That small percentage on every time you buy from them is money in their pocket that they didn't have before. Same number of customers, but now they're selling more and more and more to you. In other words, they're using more of your disposable income. All the other money that you would ordinarily have bought something somewhere else is now spent with them. That's intentional congruence. You can buy an airplane ticket. You go to Checkers, you can go and get your airplane ticket. You can buy theater tickets. You can pay your speeding fines. I hate that part because I don't like to pay them. But I mean, you can do everything at that particular. I heard you can pay your municipality bill at the retailer. Can you do that? Okay, not that we do that, we just do the internet transfer and so forth. How about airports? I met a guy, I was flying back, in fact, I was flying from France back to London, and he's an airport ergonomic retail designer. So I was like, what is that? He said, Andrew, airports are not airports anymore, they are now shopping centers. Okay? When you land in Amsterdam, you have to walk through the shops before you get to customs. And when I say walk through shops, it's like through shops and coffee shops, and I mean, you're literally walking through a full-on shopping center inside an airport. Now, why would they do that? Right? This is Heathrow, just to give you an example. This is intentional congruence, and there's a big message here, so just indulge me for a second. Okay, so if you think that passenger numbers arriving and leaving in London every single day is 201,000 passengers. Now, if you were a retailer and you had 201,000 people walking through your shop, would that be a good amount of clients? Yes or no? Yeah. Number of passengers per year, 73.4 million people go through that airport every year. That was in 2014, so last year. The busiest day ever recorded, 241,000. The busiest year ever recorded, which was last year, 73.4 million people. So now, when you go to a shop, to an airport, it becomes a meeting place. It becomes a place to shop. It's more an experience than anything else. Now, remember the old days you used to go to the airport and you couldn't even get a decent sandwich? Remember those days? You arrive in an airport, you sit there, you're starving, you're thirsty. I mean, there's no place to sit. It's horrible seats. It's noisy, it's messy. It's not like that anymore because they've now realized we've got a captive audience. Why don't we sell to this captive audience? You see, it's all about numbers. It's all about width. When you build a business, you want to have width in a business. In other words, not one business. You want to have lots of businesses. Now, how many of you travel overseas? Raise your hands. Okay. Now, when you when they ask you for your boarding pass, why do you think they do that? When you buy something at duty free or something like that, why do you think they do that? Yeah. Do you know that you fly, say, Virgin Active, and you go toot with your little boarding pass? Richard Branson's company gets paid a commission because he's the person responsible for getting you into that airport. So he gets paid a commission. So now if you're in the airline business, guess what? You're also in the retail business by default. Just by virtue of the fact that you put passengers in that airport or through the airport, you get paid another level. And they do it with car rental, with everything. If you book your car through, Kalula.com on their site, book the car, they get commission. It's all money boiling into one pot. Now, when you make money, you can either do it in one company or you can do it with a lot of companies. Which one do you think is better? A lot of companies. Because A, you spread your risk, and B, Your income comes in on multiple levels, so if one company is affected this month, the other company might not be affected, and guess what? You make the same amount of money. You even your revenue stream out. That's what intentional congruence really is. Here's some other numbers. Just percentage of passengers, 93% of passengers are international passengers. Now you're selling to an international market. What happens if you wanted to build your business internationally? All you do is get your product into an airport. People see it and bang, your business goes international, right? Local is only 5.3 million business travelers. Look at the ratio. Yeah, 30% of business travelers. It's interesting. Now this is just Heathrow. Obviously they know the numbers. They've got the Heathrow Rewards account, and these are just people that have registered on that where they get the numbers from. It's crazy, okay? And then of course leisure, you can see, is the balance. 70% of people are traveling on holiday or to visit family or something else. So if you were going to start a business, wouldn't you want to get into a business where you can have multiple streams of income? Because in an airport, for instance, restaurants, bars, shopping centers. I mean, in the old days, duty-free was most of your shopping. Now it only constitutes 5% of the shopping in an airport, right? Medical, there's pharmacies in there. You can go and have a massage if you want. My clicker's not working. You can buy airtime. Travelers arrive, they want to get a phone whilst they're over here, they can get that. You've got airplane tickets they can purchase. That's all in an airport, just one airport. Car rental, insurance. Are you starting to get the idea here? It's not an accident. Now, how many of you have heard of a company called AXA? Okay, those are the guys that give you open wallet surgery when you park your car at the airport. Those are the guys that lose your bag. Those are the guys that run the airports. It's Airports Company South Africa. Now, have a look at the numbers over there. A company bought out 20%, an Italian company bought out 20% for 819 million rand. 819 million rand. So in effect, an airport is worth about between 4.5 and 5 billion rand. Now imagine if you could have bought shares in AXA in the early days when AXA were just AC. Before they became AXA. Right? You want to understand that in a portfolio or a shareholdership, there's two benefits to being a shareholder, right? A shareholder gets their asset grows, your asset base grows because you buy something, and then the shareholder value grows, and then your income grows accordingly, and then you also get a dividend. With all quotes and buy direct, as I understand it, you purchase a license and you get paid money based on the performance of the organization. And that's great. The challenge with it is it cannot keep growing infinitum. It's not possible. Because of what? Any normal corporate structure, and I'll talk about this a little bit later as well, any corporate structure, you have your cash output in the beginning, and then you need to invest in asset, which means money has to go back into the company to make sure it doesn't disappear, so that your investment is safe, okay? So let's look at a company we all know called Apple. How many of you have heard of Apple? How many of you have at least one Apple device? Raise your hands. Okay, most people. What do the rest of you do if you don't have an Apple? How many of you have a BlackBerry? Hey, who's got a BlackBerry? Oh my word. Can we just have a moment's silence for those BlackBerry users? Okay, what happened to BlackBerry? They didn't change fast enough. They were arrogant. They dominated a massive market segment. They didn't think. They didn't change. They were stuck and stayed. And guess what happened? When the market changed and the new technology came in, they sat on their fingers and they did nothing. And the rest of the market and the rest of the companies just wiped them out. Nowadays, I mean, who buys a BlackBerry? I don't even know a single person, apart from the lady at the back who raised his hand, owns a BlackBerry. Okay? If you don't change, if you don't make decisions in an economy that changes all the time, you can be left behind. Right? So just look at Apple, and we talk about intentional congruence. There's the old Apple Mac. How many of you incidentally owned one of those? Apple 1, Apple 2. Yeah. Now that was the old Apple, right? Then they brought out, and obviously over a period of time, they brought out the iPod, which in its time was absolutely revolutionary, because now you didn't need to have 3,000 CDs in your house. You had that little device, 160 megabyte device, or it was a megabyte, yeah, megs, or gigs, or whatever. Nowadays it's gigs, and you could put all your songs on one device. Now that was just one device. So you got a computer company who's now making music product. Then what they did very smartly is brought out the iPad. Now the technology with the iPad was amazing, because it was the first device that you could use a screen and play on the screen and get it to work without using a keypad. How many of you own an iPad? Or a normal pad? Why are you laughing? Okay. Then they brought out the iPhone, a natural extension. Do you know that nowadays 32% of all business, 32% of all business purchases and so forth in the United States happens on their phone? 32% of all purchases happens on their phone. It's amazing, isn't it? So some people say, I want to get into the cell phone business. But where do you start? How do you get into a business? Do you go and create an app? I just met up with a guy about a week and a half ago. Their company spent 1.9 million rand developing an app, which didn't work. Then they brought in a new company that developed another one for them, which also doesn't work. And then when they gave them the numbers, they said, do you realize that 97% of all our traffic happens on our website? 1% of our traffic happens on the app. They then realized the website is more important than the app. So in some cases, an app is a good thing. In some cases, it isn't. But what the iPhone did was it started to connect us in a different way. Okay? So the natural progression is, even if you didn't own an Apple product, you'd buy an iPod, but then you needed a certain software to run it. Do you know what that software is? It's called iTunes. Now you load your Apple product on a normal computer, a standard desktop type computer, right? So Apple is in your sphere. They've got in. That was their footprint into your life, because now you have to use iTunes. So then you buy an iMac, right? Or you go onto the App Store, right? This clip came 1.5 months into 2015. 10 billion times. 10 billion times in 90 days. 10 billion in 90 days. Now, what does that tell you? How many of you would love to have 10 billion customers approaching you in every 90-day cycle? It's no wonder why Apple is well, I think it is now the richest company in the world, isn't it? I think they surpassed Google and the other guys, okay? How about this for a cool thing? How many of you know what Shazam is? Okay, easier question. How many of you do not know what Shazam is? Raise your hands. Wow. Okay, so let me teach you. I'm going to change your life today. So you're driving in your car and you hear a nice song and you want to buy that song. How do you buy it? You go into Musica or Look and Listen. You go to the guy at the counter and you say, I just heard a lekker song and I want to buy it. And he says, what's the name of the song? You say, I don't know, but it sounds like this. That's how you are probably buying your music. Okay? It's very sad, I have to tell you, it's very sad. Now, if you are enlightened, this is what you do. You go onto your phone and you download that app called Shazam. When the song is playing, you click on the app and it goes and finds the song for you, right? It then redirects you to iTunes, where you can then go and buy the song, and it'll cost you R7.99 to buy that song. Now, most people, they'll go to the CD shop. They'll buy the CD for 150 bucks or 160 rand. So effectively, you just wanted the one song, but now you have to pay 160 rand. It's not fair, right? So you click on Shazam, it sends you to iTunes. You buy the song for R7.99. You download it to your phone. When you get home, your Wi-Fi connects you to your laptop. So it then transfers it to your laptop and your iPad. So it does everything for you. It's clever, isn't it? What isn't clever is my wife buys on her phone and all her music ends up on my phone. That's not always fun because she's Afrikaans and I'm English, so I have to listen to, those guys. Baby chocolates, baby chocolates. So, but the point is that she bought it for R7.99 and the entire family shares in it. You can buy books, you can buy everything, and Shazam is just one fantastic tool. Now, some people say, I don't think it's really that great. Let me tell you why Shazam is great. There's just an example of what it looks like. You click on the phone, that's what it looks like. You click on it, it listens to the song, and then it finds the album for you. How brilliant is that? Okay? Now watch this. 2.9 million songs per hour is what is downloaded on iTunes at the moment. At 50 US cents profit to Apple. Because the song costs about $1. You pay R7.99 or R8.99, and Apple keeps half, and the artists and whoever else contracts, they get a share. So how brilliant is that? So Apple, a little computer company, now has a music company, and 2.9 million songs per hour. So divide that in half, it's about $1.5 million an hour in profit. Pure profit, because no one needs to do anything. The only work that gets done is to load it into iTunes. Brilliant, right? Now, here's the crazy part. Shazam, that company, the company that was up there, Shazam was developed by two 17-year-old college kids in America. They launched the product. They were turned down by pretty much everybody. And Apple said, we like that. So Apple bought them. So two little college, almost dropouts, got paid $77 million each for Shazam. And they still own shares and everything. And guess what happened? They didn't sell the entire company, they sold a portion of the company, and because Apple is the bigger company, when you're a small company and you become part of a massive company, guess what happens? The massive company drags you along because they've got that momentum, they've got the clients, they've got the referral base. And that's where you'd like to be, right? So, it just goes on and on. Now Apple have started iPay. And they say it's going to cripple the banks in America because now you just go there and tap your phone on the thing and it pays. And they get paid, every purchase, they get paid a percentage. So I don't know what the size of the American economy is. How many trillion is it every year? Imagine owning, right, or getting a small percentage, 0.5% or 1% or something. I mean, when you go and swipe your credit card, what do the vendors pay for that? You pay 12 Rand, but what does the shop pay? They pay 2% to 3%. So imagine if you were controlling or dominating that market space. So the message here is what? You want to become part of something bigger than just yourself. Okay? iWatch, how's this? You can buy an iWatch for £13,000. They're bringing out one that costs £13,000. Gold, you know, the whole shooting match. For an iWatch. Crazy. So that's not waterproof, really? Okay, so let me ask you, that's iTunes for those of you who don't know, but let me ask you a question. That's their share price. How many of you would love to have bought shares when it was over here at the bottom? How many of you would love to have bought shares when the company wasn't even known? And remember, when Steve Jobs left the company, the share price went down. Remember? They fired him. And then he came back. And look at the company today. Now, the only reason this company has grown the way it has grown is diversification. What they've done is they've said one company or one product is not enough. We need multiple companies or multiple products. Okay? You don't want to build an empire on one product or one idea. It's not enough in today's times because people are smart. Right? I launched a business a little while ago and then I saw it. Somebody else had tried to steal it. They're trying to do what I'm doing. Right? And it's only 5-6 months old, so someone hears about it. Now they're trying to steal the idea. That's the modern day economy. So you can't put all your eggs in one basket. You can't hedge one thing. So imagine if you invested. Imagine. So here's the numbers. If you'd invested $1,000 at the startup of Apple, your $1,000 today would be worth $3.9 million. If you had invested. But if you saw what they looked like in those days, you'd be thinking, there's no ways I'm giving this smelly, stinky, loud-mouthed Steve Jobs any of my money. Because we always look at a company in the beginning and think, well, will it grow? We don't know, and so forth. So intentional congruence, when an entity masters intentionally lining up multiple companies to form a chain or continuous flow of internal and external income streams, these companies go on to dominate their market space. Okay? So if you are involved with a company that does that, and we're going to be talking about the FinGroup today. Today is to give you an opportunity to get in at grassroots level on something that is so exciting, and often you will sit and you'll miss it. It'll go past you because you'll be thinking, no. Because most people are very slow to change. South Africans in particular are slow to change, right? We don't like change. So when we talk about investing, when we talk about putting money into something, There's two ways or two types of processes. One is a closed loop type system, which is like Apple, which is one company with multiple divisions. The second one is having a multiple fraction entity, in other words, having a holding concern with multiple businesses within that concern. And a great example of that would be Bidvest. How many of you know Bidvest? Have you heard of Bidvest? Right, they're massive. How many of you know what Bidvest started, what company they were when they started?
I think they were in the king business.
Okay, they were in the bread making business. They used to deliver ready-made dough to the bakeries, and that's how they started. And then they bought a company called Chip Mix and so forth. But companies like Bidvest are classic examples. If you look at why Bidvest is a great option to invest in, if you look at the history, they listed in 1990. This company's not that old, right? They've got over 300 companies, both locally and worldwide, 137,000 employees in total. Right? This is a massive organization. Now, big companies like this, if it was only one business, there's a risk. But because they've got 300 companies. Now, a friend of mine works for one of the businesses, I think it's called BidTrack. And I was just saying to him, how much profit do they make? No, they make last year 26 million. He says, but it's not as much as the other company, Coin, that does 180 million. It's all in profit. Right? Now, when you buy shares in a company like that, your stability ratios are very, very different. Now, what Bidvest is, they manage they have a decentralized business model. In other words, it is one group with all the businesses that all run themselves, and then they have the capacity to give advice and systems and all that type of thing. So the group is a strong acquisition strategy. In other words, they go and find companies that they can use. So let me give you an example. They've got 300 companies, and those companies are all buying water individually. So what does Bidvest do? We're spending too much money on water. Let's go and buy a water company. So they do. They just go and buy a water business who supplies them plus other people. So now you've got 300 businesses with 300 databases, and you bring in a new business. What happens automatically? If you're a business and you can become one of those companies, guess what happens? Your business takes off exponentially because you have extra, right? Extra in your cap. So I'm not going to go through this in too much detail, but this is just a rundown. I mean, from when they started, 1988, you can see the growth just with them acquiring companies and growing their portfolio and their platform. It's very, very strategic, right? It's not thumbsuck. They look at a company and they say, right, how does this add value to all our other businesses at the same time? And as they've grown through time, right, from 2002 up to 2007, and a lot of people don't know, in 2006, the share price dropped right down. Right down. And a lot of people got cold feet. There was trust all the way. As long as you're earning money, I trust you, I love you, I trust you, I love you. And then in 2006, this crash. But guess what? How many of you know the saying, if you take R1 million away from a millionaire, he or she will remake it immediately? Have you heard that saying before? If you give an idiot R1 million, guess what happens? What happens to an idiot if you give him R1 million? He will end up being R1 million in debt. Because if you don't have the capacity to make money or to generate income, guess what happens? You lose it. So with Bidvest, when their share price dropped, no big deal. They just built it up again. Because that's what big companies do, right? Now, I took this, I copied this, I did a screenshot last night, in actual fact, yesterday at 4 o'clock. You'll see there, time, open price, 32,500. So you want to go and buy a share, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Those are the numbers from yesterday on a company that listed in 1990. Now imagine if you were in this company and you bought, let's say, 1,000 shares at R1 per share, and you had 1,000 rands worth of shares in 1990. What's the price now? What's your share price now? It's staggering. And I didn't make these numbers up. This is a screenshot. I went into, and you can do the same thing, go into Google, type in, Bidvest share price today, and that little thing comes up, and it every 15 minutes it changes. Now, how many people do you think in the early days when Brian Joffe started out, how many people do you think, when he asked them, I need some money to launch my business, how many people said, no, I don't think I want to do it? Plenty, plenty, plenty. If there's anything I've learned by reading autobiographies of billionaires and multimillionaires and highly successful people, every single one of them at some stage needed financing, needed money, and people turned them down. And they went on in spite of, because that's what successful people do. So when you invest, the advantages, just quickly, investment across a broad spectrum is they are recession proof, because one company goes up, if one does go down, it doesn't matter. There's just a whole suite of them, right? You have diverse growth across all of them. Your stability barrier is changed. And obviously they have this thing at the bottom, the X factor. Successful people have this X factor. How many of you believe, sitting here right now, you could go and build a Bidvest? Raise your hand. Not so many hands, right? Now, if I sit in the leadership, when we're in a session with the leadership of the organization, all I can see is a Bidvest in the making. That's all I can see, because I study successful companies. That's all I do, right? Study them, build them. And I sit with this group and I go, holy moly, these guys are onto something great. They have the X factor. Now, if you're going to go and invest in your buddy next door who's never done anything successful, has failed at every venture he's ever done, and you give him 50,000 Rand, there's a high likelihood your 50,000 Rand will disappear. Do you agree with that? But if you invest it into people that are making big things happen, the whole ratio changes. Everything changes. So I always say, if only I had. If only I had. Now, the sad part is I only started studying success maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and then the share price was already insane, right? Making money. So, I asked the question very deliberately. I asked the question, and I asked myself this question: can I build a company like this? Because if I can't, what's my alternative? The alternative is to invest into a company like this. And that's really what today is about. We're going to show you the FinGroup is launched. The FinGroup, we're going to introduce you to all the companies involved in the FinGroup. And today only, you have an opportunity to get involved. Now, the opportunity that you have is going to be the biggest surprise you'll ever know. We're going to have a break just now, and you're going to go out thinking, ach nee man, ja, ek wil in hierdie ding invest nie man, ja, nee. But there's a huge surprise for all of you. A, because you've been loyal. B, because you've already trusted the organization. And C, you'd be a fool not to want to be involved. You'd be a fool. Okay, so no one can see the future. The two things that stand out are fear of the unknown. Most people are fear of the unknown, and they tend to listen to hearsay. Right? My mother, to this day, tells me, Andrew, I wish you'd just stop this business nonsense and go and get a decent job. Right? I pay my mom 10,000 Rand a month to live because she didn't make it on her plan. Her plan was work hard for 40 years, retire and be rich. That plan didn't work for her. I pay her money every month, and she, to this day, tries to talk me out of being a business owner. Can you believe it? She has no idea how I make money. She has no idea. I mean, she comes to our house and she does this. When she found out I have a bottle of whiskey in one of my collections, she found out what I paid for that bottle. I thought I was going to have to carry her to the hospital because unsuccessful people don't always understand the mechanisms. And if you could spend a day with someone that has built hundreds of companies and has a portfolio of billions, imagine what you would learn. Now, most of us don't get that opportunity. We don't get the chance to go and meet people like that. We just don't. Right? They say you should mix with successful people that you can become successful. And the first question people always ask me is, how do I get to meet them? Sometimes you could have a person sitting next to you who's old, smelly, dirty, doesn't look like anything, is worth hundreds of millions, and you'd never know. Because highly successful people don't brag about their wealth. They don't need to. Okay, so let's introduce you to the FinGroup. So the FinGroup, 15 companies underneath the portfolio already. So there they are, 15 companies under one business umbrella, and today you have an opportunity to own a slice of this.